Hey guys, back with another Greek story explained. This one is a little bit longer, and it's one that you guys might have heard before, or at least probably know bits and pieces of. It is the story between Cupid and Psyche. This is a Roman story or Roman version of the Greek mythology. They share a lot of the same things. But in Latin, Psyche is the word for soul. And so Psyche in our soul is in relationship with Cupid or the idea or the god of love. And so the story really goes into explaining the different relationships that our soul can have with love and how we're always constantly in this always present but very back and forth relationship dynamic with love as a soul. Um, like I said, it's a little bit longer, but it is very good, very thick with truth and teaching. And so let's just dive right on into it. The story starts with a king who has three daughters. And as a lot of these stories go, one of the daughters is just magnificently beautiful to the point where people are kind of confused whether or not she's actually immortal or if she is just a god that is gracing Earth for a little bit. It gets to the point as she grows up where people are leaving their towns to come see her and to come ask her questions or just to be in her presence because there is something so beautiful about her that it cannot be earthly. It doesn't make sense that it's earthly. So they begin to really fill her up with all of this praise and all of this admiration, which is based on nothing more than the fact that she exists as she is. This soul is uh, uh, raised on high just because she exists as what she is. So, one of the side effects of this, though, is that people stop worshiping specifically Venus, who Greek name is Aphrodite, so the goddess of all things beautiful. I wish I had a better word for it than just beautiful because beauty is different than love, as we'll see later in the story, but she is up to this point the most elegant and beautiful thing that has ever came into creation. But there's something about Psyche that is even more magnificent. So people start leaving temples to her to go see this new person. So no more sacrifices, no more prayers, no more attention, really. And so Venus, Aphrodite, but I'm going to use Venus, uh, she figures out what's going on and she gets pissed. She gets jealous because up until now she has been the epitome of beauty and of yearning and of pursuit. So she figures out what's going on and she's like, well, I can't tarnish my own name, so I will have my son go down there and see what's actually happening. Her son is Cupid. So Cupid, as you might imagine, is the god of love. He is the kind of love that is either infatuated or comfortably sitting with, or um, it doesn't matter. Any scope of love that you can think of, he is the main deity of all of that. And so Venus says to him, she goes, go down and see this Psyche. Go down and see this girl and shoot her with an arrow and make her fall in love with the most crude, ugly, barbaric, demoralizing person that's there. She goes, people are crowding her. There's so many people there to see her. There's bound to be the one that just would ruin her life if she fall in love with him. And I know that you, being Cupid, can make anybody fall in love with anything. So she sends him on his way, and he does go down there. He goes down and he disguises himself as a mortal to get close to her, but as he rounds the area and actually sees her, he himself is taken back by just how magnificent this person is. And Cupid, being Cupid, isn't quite just looking at the physical complexion of this being, but as the entirety, as the wholeness of Psyche, as the entirety of a soul, and love himself is just blown away by how magnificent this creation is, this person is. So he knows that he can't reveal himself. He's a little more secretive. And so he flies away and just goes to his buddy Apollo, who's the sun god, and just has a bro time with him and just kind of shares his story and what's going on. And um, that's kind of where he sits for a while, is just in this odd anguish of how can he become closer to this soul without being so outrightly bold in what he is? Because love is humble. True love is humble. So, sidestep back over to Psyche. As this time has gone by, they begin to realize that everyone that came to visit her wasn't there to try and wed her. They weren't there to try and court her or even really make any sort of relationship advance on her. They would come and they would see her and they would get inspired and go and find the love of their life or go and find their passion or go and find their artwork. To the point where even her sisters were married at this point, and she was beginning to think something's got to be wrong with me. And her father's like, well, something's got to be wrong with you. So he's like, well, don't worry about it. I'll go to the oracle and I will figure out what's going on and we'll get some clarity on this. So oracles, just for the sake of it, are people who can communicate with the gods of Olympus and convey it to humans. So he goes to the oracle of Apollo, who is who he followed. And just real quick, remember that Apollo had already talked to Cupid, so Apollo knows what's going on and essentially gets asked, what do I do about this? And the oracle replies to her father that there is a winged beast, the likes of which men have never seen, that will wed your daughter. He will come and he will take her and he will make her his. And so you have really two choices. You can either keep her in your castle, or you can leave her on top of this mountain where the beast will come and he will take her. So that's not really what he was hoping to hear. So he walks back on down to his home and he relays this information. Everybody's distraught and confused and like, how can this be? She's so beautiful. How can a winged beast be fated to take her away? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But Psyche, being Psyche, takes one for the team and she's like, I'll go to the top of this mountain and I'll meet my fate. So she dresses up in her funeral garb and her most solemn expressions, and she walks with her family up to the top of this mountain, and they have their goodbyes, they have their tears, they have their mourning, and they leave her on top of this mountain waiting for the winged beast to come and take her away. So after they leave, and she's just sitting there, she starts to hear whispers in the air. Whispers on the wind, whispers in the trees, saying, come with us. Come with us. Come with us. I have something to show you. Come with us. And so she's a little hesitant for a minute, but she stands up and says, okay, I'll go see what's going on. And as she stands up, the winds come and pick her up and move her down the mountain, across the river, through the wood, and ends up at this like miraculous mansion. Okay. There is something to be said there about when the soul is sitting in what it decides or believes will be its ending, there will be whispers saying to stand up. And if you do stand up, fate or the wind can move you where you're meant to be. So she ends up at this mansion, and it's just filled with the best kind of food, all these different fireplaces, all these beautiful linens and cloths and couches, and just like the peak of luxury. And she's sitting there and she just keeps hearing these whispers saying, this is for you. This is all for you. Everything I have is for you. And it won't be revealed to her until later, but this is actually Cupid's home. This is where he stays. And he got her to come there just by being whispers on the wind. So she's sitting there and she's enjoying herself, and she just is aware that there's somebody that she can't see, but that is taking care of her. And as time goes on, these whispers become more personified, and they tell her how strong she is and how magnificent she is and how much they care for her. And this is just Cupid whispering to her because he can't be seen. He's just a humble god. He won't be seen. And so some time goes by, and she hears that her sisters are actually on the way back to the mountain where she was last seen to pay their respects. They're in mourning still. And so she is so grief-stricken about how she forgot that her sisters still believe she died, or at least was carried off by this winged beast. And so she pleads with the whispers to let her go see her sisters. And the whispers, or Cupid, just keep saying, don't go, don't go, don't go, don't go. If you go, it's going to be the downfall of us. It's going to be the 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 calamity of our relationship if you do go see your sisters. But she is just so adamant about needing to at least set the record straight that Cupid or the Whispers eventually say, okay, I'll let you go. Well, go ahead. And so she's carried on the wind to the top of the mountain as her sisters were arriving, and they meet and they hug and they have a almost euphoric reconnection where they're just so confused about how she looks so good and let alone still alive. And so Psyche's like, well, let me take you back to my house and I'll explain what I can to you. So all three of them end up going back to this house, which is just immaculate to the point of the sisters getting sparked with envy. Because for their whole lives, Psyche was adored and honored and put above them. And when she got carried away by the winged beast, they were like, fuck yeah, finally. Finally, we are on top. But now they realize, oh, she's living a beautiful life with a husband she says really, really cares for her. But this jealousy gets inside of their heads and they're like, well, who is he? Who is he? How do you know he's so magnificent if you've never seen him, if you've never touched him? My husband and I, we can share glances, we can share touches, we can share full conversations. How do you know that you're not married to the winged beast that's just going to lure you into a false sense of comfort and then kill you? That is what you're fated to do, don't you remember? And so, after that pleasant exchange, the sisters leave, and Psyche has doubt in her head now. These trusted other people, these companions, filled her head with doubt, where she was naturally filled with appreciation. So, as night comes in, she can hear the Whispers enter the house, and after their nightly exchange of hello, how are you, I love yous, go to the room at the end of the hall where she knows he sleeps. It sleeps. Whether it's the winged beast or whether it's just some man or just the forest, she doesn't know. But she knows that at night in that room is where this sleeps. And she's like, I need to know who he is. I need to know what he is. I need to know what I'm doing. I need to know if I should run. I need to know what the heck is going on. So she grabs she grabs a candlestick and a knife and walks into this room. Her heart is beating. Frantic, nervous, scared. She walks in, and there's the bed there with the curtains covering it. And she walks up, all spooked. And she pulls the curtain back and she sees Cupid. Of all things, the most glorious, simple, subtle, loud, passionate, glowing person. And she is struck by this, just seeing him hit her in a way that she physically had to move. And as she did so, she tilted her candlestick, and some of the wax went and fell on Cupid's back, burning him very, very badly. And so Cupid wakes up and he looks at her with his just most broken face, like when a kid realizes that you cheated in a game, and it's the first time they've ever been cheated before, like just hurt, distraught, painfully so. And he gets up and he's like, I gotta go. I gotta go. And she's like, don't go, don't go. You know, there's this back and forth for a little bit. And as he's standing in the door frame, he goes, love cannot exist where trust doesn't live. And so he flies away after this, and she is wrecked. I'm going to say it again. Love cannot exist where trust doesn't live. It's a very big thing. So Cupid flies back to his mom's. And she sees him with this look like, I told you, I knew she was no good. I knew she was no good. Come back in, I'll take care of you. And so she takes him back in his house, or in her house, and brings him to a back room and has some attendants come to like start nursing his wound, which is actually very bad. And to the point where he can't fly, he can't walk anymore. He used all of his energy just to get back to his mom's house. And she puts him in there and she locks him in this room. Because in her head, she knows that Cupid cannot stay away from Psyche. They are bound to each other. It is too deep and too real for them to forget about one another. And so she's like, I have to deal with this in my own way, and I'll keep him locked in this room so he can't interfere with what I'm doing. Meanwhile, Psyche is very distraught, but she gets hit with this inspiration and this courage where she's like, I'm going to go find him. I don't care what it takes. You know what? I'm going to skip all of the other gods and I'm going to go straight for his mother because I know she knows where he is. And so Psyche marches her way right up into Olympus, right through it, which isn't actually allowed most of the time, and right into Venus's door frame and knocks on it. And Venus opens the door with this just, who the F are you kind of look. Who do you think you are? And Psyche says, I'm here for my husband. I'm here for love. I am here at the footstep of a god because I know what my heart wants. And Venus says, okay, well, I have a few tests for you first. I got a few things that you need to prove to me that you can do before I let you have my son. So the first test is this, and she takes a bag and it's filled with all of these different kinds of seeds. Milkweed seeds, poppy seeds, different flower seeds, different grain seeds, and she pours it out in front of Psyche and she says, sort these out by morning. And that's your first task. And so she leaves, and Psyche is sitting there with this mess of all of this humbled, jumbled, like, I don't even know how to. Basically, she's sitting in front of a clusterfuck of different ingredients that she needs to sort out, right? So this is just a perfect metaphor of saying that sometimes we feel like in order to get love, we need to sort out things that there's really no way you can sort out. You can't figure it out. You can't do it. It's just a mess. It's just a mess. But part of us thinks, well, if I can figure this out and I can appease the sense of beauty, then I can at least have my love back. So she's sitting there and she's just, it doesn't even start this project though, because she just can tell that it's pointless. And as she's sitting there and she's crying out to just the fates, like, help me. And all of a sudden these ants come out of the ground and start sorting out the seeds because they feel pity for her. They see what she's trying to do. And so she gets helped by these ants who, by the morning time, do sort it all out. And as Venus comes back, she is just infuriated as much as she is impressed. But she says, okay, that was one task. Now your next task is to go down to this river where the golden sheep live. These sheep are not like cute, cozy sheep. These are sheep that kill people. In the story, they kill people. And she's like, and I want you to get enough fleece for me that I can make a garment for myself. And so Psyche goes down to this riverbank. It's all covered in brush and thorns, and sees these sheep, and they're just, I would say, looking scary, but it's a sheep. So do your best in your imagination to make a scary looking sheep. And she's distraught because she knows that she can't go get this. There's no way for her to do it safely. So this is another metaphor of saying sometimes to get what you think love is, you put yourself in dangerous situations to try and find some beauty in there. There's got to be some beauty in it, even though I know I'm risking myself and my integrity, my safety, my sense of well-being. I'm risking by being in this situation, but I know there's something beautiful in here somewhere. So as she's sitting there pondering all this, Reed from the bank whispers to her and says, wait until the sheep fall asleep and walk through the briars and collect the fleece that had been plucked from them. So she does. That night she goes around to these different bushes and pulls out all the gold fleece that had been stuck in these different branches and such. Makes her way back, shows Venus. Venus is just getting more and more irritated. She can tell that somehow fate or the gods or somebody is helping her, but she's not smart enough to say, then I will stop. So she goes and she gives her this ultimate task of saying, okay, now I want you to go into Hades, hell, and I want you to go see Persephone, who's the queen of the dead. That's a whole nother story too. Maybe one day we'll do that. But go to Persephone, who is the second in beauty after Venus herself, and ask her to put some beauty in a box and bring me some of the queen of the dead's beauty, right? So at this point, Psyche's like, I have nothing left to lose. I'll just go keep on going. God's been kind to me. The fates have been kind to me. I'll just pursue this still. And she goes down into Hades, and there's a whole lot of stuff that happens here that I don't remember because it's a lot of Latin names and different things I didn't keep in my head. But she does make her way past Cerberus, the three-headed dog, past the rivers of Styx, past the river of forgetting, past all of these landmarks that are made to keep people out, let alone a mortal out. And she arrives at the castle of Pluto, Hades, himself and his wife Persephone. And she boldly walks up to Persephone and explains her situation about Venus and all the whole thing. And Persephone takes, I would say she takes pity, but we'll see. She takes pity on at least the story, and she's like, okay, here's some of my beauty for you. I'll put it in a box. Just make sure you deliver this to Venus and Venus only. But here you go. And so Psyche takes the box filled with Persephone's beauty and begins her way back up through Hades and back up into Olympus, knowing in her heart of hearts, like, this was the hardest task she could give me, and I succeeded. And so she's walking and she's holding this box filled with Persephone's beauty, and she starts to get curious. And she starts to get a little envious and a little like, well, maybe if I could don this beauty, I would shine so bright that love would come back to me. Maybe if I took bits and pieces of these other people and wore them on myself, that maybe love would find me suitable again. Maybe, and it's this is the one that breaks her. This is the one that breaks her. It's not that she isn't intelligent. It's not that she's not brave. It's that she begins to feel like she's not enough. So she opens this box to see what was in it, to see if she can don it. And Persephone had played a trick on Venus. She didn't give her beauty. She gave her a piece of her sister's sleep. What's her sister? It's cloth. And so Psyche opens it and just gets hit with this sense of sleep and almost death and falls down cold. I want you to think about that. When you as a soul don something that is not meant for you, part of you does fall asleep. Part of you, your authenticity, falls asleep. And a lot of times we have to work to get that back. So, but that falling asleep was enough for Cupid to register something was going on. He woke up feeling a lot better and went to leave, and he couldn't get out of the door because Venus had locked him in there. But for some reason in the story, she forgets that he has wings, and he flies out the window. And he searches and searches for Psyche, knowing that something happened. And he ends up finding her asleep, almost near death, really no sense of like who she is anymore, just laying there, cold and defeated. And he sees this, and he is so inspiredly passionate to make this not the end of the story. And he takes one of his arrows and he just gently pokes her. The smallest poke, the smallest touch of love woke her up from her sleep. I want to think about that for a minute. When you're down there, when you're in that, and there's just this person or this view or this thing or this song, it's just the smallest taste of love can wake you up from being asleep. I was reading a book once that said love is a reactive emotion. It reacts to love, and those loves keep going back and forth until it's louder and louder and louder. So Psyche wakes up from this sleep and sees Cupid, who is now standing boldly in front of her. He doesn't care to be hidden anymore. He knows what she went through and all the things she fought for, and he says, you're going to see me, and not only are you going to see me, but we are going to get married after this. And he takes her and he goes right to the god of the gods. He goes right to Zeus, Jupiter, Zeus, and he says, she is mine. Psyche is mine, and you will marry us, and you will make her immortal today. And as this is going on, Venus sees this and gets really just distraught and ugly. But as she's making her move to try and rope Psyche back into some of her games, which is to say, as your soul finds love comfortably, these old habits of trying to pursue beauty will sneak back in to try and take you back to their little realm of game playing. But as she's on her way to do this, Zeus grants her Psyche and Cupid a marriage, and thereby makes Psyche not only immortal, but she is now a god. And so Venus has no say in their affairs anymore. So this is one of the few Greek stories that does end happily, where you do get everything tied up in a nice picture. And for today, it felt very important to share this story because our relationship as a soul with love does get tried. And it is hard to hold faith, and it is hard to not try and appease or pursue beauty or figure out the logic puzzles or put ourselves in dangerous situations or change who we are to don masks. It's very hard to live authentically as a soul and pursue and live with love. And it is also just as hard for love to stay away from you. It is naturally bound to pursue you. And love will always find you, whether it gently brings you into its embrace or if it has to come find you after you're crawling out of Hades just to gently touch you and wake you up. Your soul, your psyche, and love are bound together. And it's just a matter of if you forget it, if you don't trust it, if you feel you still need to pursue it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because love will find you in the most glorified way it is able to at that moment. And the more that you are able to comfortably rest in love, in all the blessings that love gives you, despite your sisters or your family members or your society saying that that's not what love should look like, you should know it looks like this or it shouldn't look. Despite all of that, the more you're able to comfortably trust and rest in love, the happier your marriage will be with it. And at the end of the story, at the end of all the things, your soul is married to love. You are in an unbreakable union with it. And a lot of life is just continuously remembering that. So we're getting close to a half-hour mark. If you made it this long, I appreciate it and I'm proud of you. Otherwise, I'm going to try and do these. I'm going to do these on Mondays. And yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, let me know. All right, love you guys. Thanks. Bye.